Over the last few years, comic book consumers have tried to convince an industry that doesn't care about them that they need to change. You need to be more professional. You need to offer better products. And if you don't, well, you're going to go the way of the dinosaur. Today, I want to showcase an exchange. It's between comic book consumers and comic book pros, where pros tell you that professionalism, it does not matter. If you call for that, you're some type of buzzword, and you're not really the consumer. What exactly does it take for consumers to wake up and to say, hey, I'm tired of this, I'm going to go another way? Hey there, so today we are returning to that wonderful world of comic books. And before we look at this exchange and the people behind it, I want you to understand exactly where comic books are. These are comparative sales statistics talking about January 2019 versus January 2020. If you notice right off the bat, under the thing comics, that single issue comics, you'll notice dollars are down. Units are down, and that's been the story for the last 3 years. You have demand that keeps tanking, dollars that keep tanking, and the only reason those numbers are not astronomical is because of the predatory practices that the comic book industry engages in, shutting down comic book shops and really taking advantage of all types of people out there. If you look, for example, at the top 10 comic books, you'll notice $3.99 is the lowest price that you see, all the way up to $9.99. So you've gone into pricing that has gone through the roof. You also notice that every comic on here is either a milestone or a reboot. So there's no added value. These things will be worthless in the future, but hey, why don't you jump in, because maybe that'll be worth something to you. They also have older stock to fall back on, like The Watchmen or say The Killing Joke. And those things, after 35 years here, they're still charting. The comic book industry is going to have a rough year in 2020 as well. You can already see the signs of it with Diamond closing down their retailer summit. Wait until the comic book conventions come around, or when you actually have to get people into stores. You're going to have some real problems, because every industry is going to have this problem. They need their consumers, and they need them badly. In this environment, however, comic book pros like Patrick Zurcher, they thrive because of ego and narcissism, telling people, you know what, we're better than you. We are absolutely better than you. You can see him talking to fans on Twitter here. Are comic book pros more negative than comic fans? And you know something these people need to understand? Likes are cheap. People that like your comments, they don't buy your comic books, as the numbers truly show. Here comes somebody saying, yes, in few industries can pros talk down to a client and higher-ups let them keep a job, be it for their political beliefs or critiques. This isn't all pros, just a good majority of them. There's little to no customer service in comics anymore, and that is absolutely true. I mean, before going forward with that exchange, I want to show you some older exchanges just to give you an idea of the kind of person we're dealing with. I mean, these things, they're deleted too, just to say, because they love to throw out those hot takes and delete them. They don't want accountability, but you can see what they have to say. If there was a God, surely Dana Lash would have been accidentally. Wait, what now? Oh, that's a lovely thing to wish on people, Patch. And woe be it unto you if you bring up this thing here, wherein Rich Johnston from Bleeding Cool called this guy an alt. You can finish the rest of that because he unblocked a bunch of people on Twitter. If you end up bringing that up, you'll have an experience like, well, let me show you. See, Zurcher is a terrible professional. Terrible at this. He would not be able to hold down a job in any other profession. But comic book pros, they love swarming on the consumer. In fact, if you go through this, what you see are comic book pros that do not like people like myself very well, because we tell them the truth. We don't worship at the altar of the profession. We tell them that, hey, you were supposed to be the example of what even-tempered creators are. So you decide to attack consumers. They stop buying. I stopped buying. And you can see how they react to it. I don't think you're terrible. I think you're crazy, because you want professionalism from these people. So now that you know their stance on professionalism, well, back to this conversation wherein someone talks about no customer service anymore. Basically, why don't you act like a professional? This is the answer that they get. Why is every Comicsgate guy obsessed with customer service? They want pros to warm up to them, and yet the insults I've seen aimed at people I've worked with, at myself, if a waitress served you a meal you didn't like, would you call her a? Did you see anybody calling them that? But yet, here again, likes are cheap. He gets to have some likes there. Oh man, isn't that lovely? At the cost of consumers, because consumers, they are gravitating away from this market. But then again, as another pro points out here, they don't care because they don't see you as the consumer. There's a deep misunderstanding of who the client is here. And my business card says writer, not customer service. So number one, you're not the consumer. We don't have to treat you well because we sell to the local comic shop, not to you. Not that you can't take an industry there. And number two, they write the books. So you know what? They don't have to treat you with dignity or respect because, hey, that doesn't impact anything. If you got a problem with the way that they're treating you, you need to call the other hotline. At what point can consumers agree that we made a mistake? We built shrines to these people's egos, to their narcissism. We put Comic-Cons on saying, hey, these people are heroes when they're nothing but. At what point can we agree that our money should not go to this because these folks, they don't even get the first step in what should be a healthy business relationship? Someone comes in and asks about this too, asking what exactly is the deep misunderstanding? Are we wrong in saying fans who purchase the work are the writer's clients? And well, here's Ron Martz, again, the guy who created fridging. If you want to look up something people complain about all the time on that side, he created that, so just look that up. But anyway, yes, that's wrong. Writers are hired by publishers. Publishers sell to retailers, and retailers sell to fans. So my client is the publisher, not the fan. You notice that they love that word, fan. You know why? Because that feeds their ego and their narcissism. You are not a consumer. You are a fan of what they do. I mean, if you pick it up, you're a fan of them, but they're not accountable to you, because again, they can treat you like absolute trash and you're going to come back and keep paying. And if not, there's always more fans, aren't there? Now, Tweeter Trash, they take this further and they say a popular idea among comic pros today is that they exist behind bulletproof glass and have little regard for readers. What are your thoughts? And they tag in these different places. And I want you to see the companies that are represented here because we're not talking about some publishers setting off. We're talking about mainstay companies like Warner Brothers because they own DC Comics. We're talking about Disney because they own Marvel. I mean, look at the companies that are made up in this, that are connected. Then you think if people start waking up and they start removing their business from things like this, well, then they're going to have a problem. Now, I want to look at all of these ats too, but one at that's not here, Walmart, they're directly tied not only to DC Comics, but to Patrick Zurcher himself, because Patrick Zurcher's book sat on their shelves under DC Comics. Do you think that they would appreciate the fact that people, they might walk away because, hey, customer service does not exist here? But looking at these tags, DC Comics, Jim Lee. First of all, you're never going to hear anything from any of those, so you might as well hang it up from DC or their publisher. Then you have AT&T Help, who owns Warner Media Group, Warner Brothers. They came in and bought that out. UBS, you have JP Morgan that's tied into this, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Citigroup, Barclays, and this is just one group. I mean, if we took it further and we start looking at who's tied into Marvel, then you start seeing Disney and all of those conglomerates. If you start looking into places like IDW, you see other companies in there, including Hasbro and on. Like I said, there are a lot of dominoes and a lot of moving parts in here. And when you start asking those hard questions about customer service, well, maybe these pros, they would get an answer that they didn't like. But anyway, you tell me what you think about this stuff. And really, I'm waiting for people to wake up, stop buying into ideas like separate the art from the artist, because these people, they operate under the auspices that they still get your money. They don't deserve your money. They need to deserve your money. Maybe you need to hold them to that standard. But anyway, you tell me what you think. Ending this too, I do want to thank you for showing up and participating. You make these endeavors possible. It's just like I said with this stuff. You make all of this stuff work. People need to thank you for it. They need to be nice about it. That's the whole thing that makes this stuff operate. People start forgetting that. Woe be it unto them. I never want to be that person, so I end this thanking you to remind me who actually makes this work, and because I am indebted to it. I appreciate it. I don't want to monopolize your time further either, but I do want to say it's valuable. Thank you for spending it here, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.